Hello and welcome to this exploring session. This today is a session splinched between the end of the Battle of Alcazar, and in a moment we're going to be going to the lamentable tragedy of Locrine. In a moment we're going to be looking at Act 4 and Act 5 of the Battle of Alcazar. If you want to know what's been going on, this in the previous three acts is very much all the political build-up to the battle that is coming any moment now. Various forces from various different parts of the world, for various different reasons, are going to end up in the middle of nowhere and fight the Battle of Alcazar, a place that, as I say, from all the research I've looked at, it was not the place anyone ever expected a battle of any interest to be occurring. But indeed, lo, it happened. Fought in Barbary between Sebastian, King of Portugal, who we've met, and Abedelmelec, who we've also met, who's King of Morocco, and it features much death, including the death of Captain Stukely. So those, Ruth, who's reading Captain Stukely, just forewarned there, spoilers from the off, you're doomed. You are definitely going to die. Very, very sorry about that. Today, as I say, we're looking at Act 4 with this crack team of people before we then segue to the opening of Locrine towards the end of the session. So, in no particular order, reading Avero, Boy, and Corineius in Locrine is...
Hello, I'm Dan. I'm an actor in Montpellier, France.
And reading King Sebastian and Thrasimachus in the next play is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott. I'm based in Suffolk, and I'm not an actor.
And reading Zareo, Jonas in this place, and Debon in Locrine is...
Hi, I'm Tamara. I'm an actor still in lockdown in Germany, usually in London.
And reading Abedelmelec, a peasant, and later on, Gwendoline, is...
Hello, I'm Sarah. I'm an actor, writer, and director based in Germany.
And reading Hercules, Arte, and Trompart today is...
Hi, I'm Steve Longstaffe. I'm a scholar of early modern drama based in Lancaster in the UK.
And reading Captain Stukely and Asoarchus, we decided earlier how that was going to be pronounced, and then I immediately forgot it. Reading those two parts is...
Hello, I'm Ruth Evans. I'm a specialist in late medieval English literature, and I live in St. Louis, Missouri.
And reading Muly, Mahamet, and Brutus, and Dorothy is...
Hi, my name's Elizabeth. I'm an author based in Romford in Essex.
And finally, I think, reading the presenter, the Portugal, and Stumbo is...
Hi, I'm Valentina, and I'm an Italian actor and voiceover artist in London.
And I am your host, Robert Crighton. I will be reading...
Helen.
Oh, did I miss someone? Who did I miss?
Helen.
I missed Helen. I've got you crossed out the wrong... I'm so sorry, Helen. Reading Celybin, Muly, Mahamet, Seth, and Locrine. How could I forget? Locrine, so sorry, is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good. I'm a historian, and I'm in Yorkshire.
This is our team. So, without further ado, unless I've missed anyone else out, we will go on to Act 4. The acts tend to open with a presenter and a bit of a dumb show, and there is some additional dumb show business that I will feed in, which is not necessarily in the scripts that the cast actually have in front of them. So, because we have not only got a original version of the play, but we also have surviving fragments from the plot, which is a bit of additional material kept backstage to remind busy actors what the hell they're supposed to be doing next, and in part just generally plot out how the action occurs. So there's some additional detail which we can throw in, which may or may not be associated with the performance of this play in its original form. So, Act 4, enter the presenter, please.
Now hardened in this hapless heathen prince, and strengthened by the arms of Portugal, this murderer of his progeny, and war, and weapons now, and blood, and death, wait on the counsels of this cursed king, and to a bloody banquet he invites the brave Sebastian and his noble peers.
So there's a dumb show at this point, and the notes that we've got, not only is there a bloody banquet brought in by two of the Moors, enter to the bloody banquet Sebastian, Muly, Mahamet, the Duke of Avero, and Stukely. To them enter Death and 3 Furies. Ooh. One with blood, one with dead men's heads in dishes, another with dead men's bones. So a lovely visual tableau for you to go into Act 4.
In a fatal hour arrived this peerless prince, to lose his life, and many lives of lusty men, courageous Portugals, drawn hither by ambition's golden hooks. Let fame of him nor wrongful censure sound. Honour was object of his thoughts, ambition was his ground.
So, with actually a relatively short presenter's speech, we go straight into Act 4, Scene 1. Enter Abedelmelec and his train various other bodies on stage.
Now tell me, Celybin, what doth the enemy?
The enemy, dread lord, hath left the town of Azel with 1,000 soldiers armed to guard his fleet of 1,300 sail. And mustering of his men before the walls, he found he had 2,000 armed horse and 14,000 men that serve on foot, 3,000 pioneers, 1,000 coachmen, besides a number almost numberless of drudges, negroes, slaves, and muleteers, horseboys, laundresses, and courtesans, and 1,500 wagons full of stuff for noblemen brought up indelicate.
Alas, good king, thy foresight hath been small to come with women into Barbary, with laundresses, with baggage, and with trash, numbers unfit to multiply thy host.
Their payment in the camp is passing slow, and victuals scarce that many faint and die.
But whither marcheth he in all this haste?
Some think, my lord, he marcheth hitherward, and means to take this city of Alcazar.
Unto Alcazar? Oh, unconstant chance!
The brave and valiant King of Portugal quarters his power in 4 battalions, affront the which to welcome us withal are 36 roaring pieces placed, the first consisting of light armoured horse, and of the garrison from Tangier brought, is led by Alvaro Perez de Tabero. The left or middle battle of Italians with German horsemen. Stukely doth command, a warlike Englishman sent by the Pope, that vainly calls himself Marquis of Ireland. Alonso Aquilas conducts the 3rd, that wing of German soldiers most consists. The 4th legion is none but Portugal's, of whom Lodovico Caesar hath the chiefest charge. Besides, there stand 6,000 horses, bravely attired, pressed where need requires. Thus have I told your royal majesty how he is placed to brave us in the fight.
But where's our nephew, Muly Mahamet?
He marcheth in the middle, guarded about with full 500 harquebuses on foot, and twice 3,000 needless armed pikes.
Great sovereign, vouchsafe to hear me speak, and let Zareo's counsel now prevail, whilst time doth serve, and that these Christians dare approach the field with warlike ensigns spread. Let us in haste with all our forces meet, and hem them in, that not a man escape. So will they be advised another time how they do touch the shore of Barbary.
Zareo, hear our resolution, and thus our forces we will first dispose. Hamet, my brother, with 1,000 shot on horseback, and choice harquebusiers all, having 10,000 foot with spear and shield, shall make the right wing of the battle up. Zareo, you shall have in charge the left, 2,000 argalays and 10,000 horse, the main battle of harquebus on foot, and 20,000 horsemen in their troops. Myself, environed with my trusty guard of janissaries, fortunate in war, and towards Azel we will take our way. If then our enemy will balk our force, in God's name let him, it will be his best. But if he level at Alcazar walls, then beat him back with bullets thick as hail, and make him know and rue his oversight that rashly seeks the ruin of this land.
And they exit. A nice short little scene. Interesting things coming up there, especially following on from the dumb show, which shows that there's it's not a good presaging for Sebastian, Muly, Mahamet, Stukely, etc. when to them enter death and three furies. And then we have the opposing side, sort of just discussing what their enemy's up to, and the sort of plus and minus points for Abedelmelec in this point, in the sense that King Sebastian's army does seem to be full of some really random followers on. They brought some random stuff. They're not necessarily as well supplied as they could be. They have brought some heavy artillery, roaring pieces. This is what's coming forward, and now Abedelmelec sort of with that information, so it's can put forward his field, what he's going to do. And we have the first naming of Alcazar, I think, within the play itself, within a character within the play, talking about, this is where something is going to happen. So it's a nice sense of motion to this, I feel. Thoughts from the room before we move forward?
Wargamers have a certain amount of fun with this, as I understand it. I once met one. Because this is the sort of detail that they really enjoy.
You can see a map here, can't you? You can see that they've got a little model. They've got the little pieces, or something along those lines. It's a wargamer's paradise, isn't it?
If you look on the Wikipedia page for the Battle of Alcazar, there's a very nice depiction of everybody, how they're all lined up with the pikes and the guns, both sides.
Yes, the accounts for which this is based are quite detailed about some of the actions. So there is a lot of, and that's the kind of thing. It's only about 10 years or so since the battle happened that all this play first appears. So it's still relatively recent. All that information is possibly in the public domain, or an expectation that a lot of the audience would know it. Any other thoughts?
Technical thing, Rob. In that speech, it says the main battle of Hocubus on Fool. I said foot because I don't know if it's fool or foot, but I just thought I'd flag that up for you.
Sorry, where okay.
Foot
sounds right.
9 lines down in that big speech that he has that begins Zareo, hear our resolution.
Oh yeah, that should be on foot. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. That's good. I can correct. Thank you. Any other thoughts at this stage? We're on one side of the battle to come, as it were, one set of forces. Let's go to the other side then. Okay, Act 4, Scene 2. Enter, and we've got some additional notes here that this may be by torchlight. But we have the enter of Sebastian, Duke of Avero, Stukely, Jonas, and others.
Why, tell me, lords, why left ye Portugal and crossed the seas with us to Barbary? Was it to see the country and no more, or else to fly before ye were assailed? I'm ashamed to think that such as you, whose deeds have been renowned heretofore, should slack in such an act of consequence. We come to fight, and fighting vow to die, or else to win the thing for which we came, because Abedelmelec, as pitying us, sends messages to counsel quietness. You stand amazed, think it's sound advice, as if our enemy would wish us any good. No, let him know we scorn his courtesy, and will resist his forces whatsoe'er. Cast fear aside, myself will lead the way, and make a passage with my conquering sword, knee deep in blood of these accursed Moors. And they that love my honour, follow me. Were you as resolute as your king, Alcazar walls should fall before your face, and all the voice of this barbarian lord should be confounded, were it 10 times more.
So well become these words, a kingly mouth that are of force to make a coward fight. But when advice and prudent foresight is joined with such magnanimity, trophies of victory and kingly spoils adorn his crown, his kingdom, and his fame.
And there is a suggestion that there's a bit of a cut here somewhere in that bit of text that it should continue. Enter Cristofero, Don Menenzes, and Hercules around about this point, possibly in the middle of some dialogue that's not there.
We've descried upon the mountaintops a hugy company of invading Moors, and they, my lord, as thick as winter's hail will fall upon our heads at unawares. Best then betimes to void this gloomy storm. It is in vain to strive with such a stream.
And enter Muly Mahamet.
Behold, thrice noble lord, uncalled I come, to counsel where necessity commands, and honour of undoubted victory makes me exclaim upon this dastard fight. Why, King Sebastian, wilt thou now forslow, and let so great a glory slip thy hands? Say you do march on to Teresa now. The forces of the foe are come so nigh that he will let the passage of the river, so unawares you will be forced to fight. But know, O king, and you, thrice valiant lords, few blows will serve. I ask but only this, that with your power you march into the field, for now is all the army resolute to leave the traitor helpless in the fight, and fly to me as to their rightful prince. Some horsemen have already led the way, and vow the like for their compassions. The host is full of tumult and fear. Then, as you come to plant me in my seat, and to enlarge your fame in Africa, now or never, bravely execute your resolution sound and honourable, and end this war together with his life, that doth usurp the crown of tyranny.
Captains, you hear the reasons of the king, which so effectually have pierced mine ears, that I am fully resolute to fight. And who refuseth now to follow me, let him ever be ever counted cowardly.
Shame be his share that flies when kings do fight. Avero lays his life before your feet.
For my part, lords, I cannot sell my blood dearer than in the company of kings.
And exeunt everyone except for Muly Mahamet.
Now have I set these Portugals at work, to hew a way for me unto the crown, or with their weapons here to dig their graves. You bastards of the night and Erebus, fiends, fairies, hags that fight in beds of steel, range through this army with your iron whips. Drive forward to this deed, this Christian crew, and let me triumph in the tragedy, though it be sealed and honoured with the blood both of the Portugal and barbarous Moor. Ride, Nemesis, ride in thy fiery cart, and sprinkle gore amongst these men of war, that either party, eager of revenge, may honour thee with sacrifice of death. And having bathed thy chariot wheels in blood, descend and take to thy tormenting hell the mangled body of that traitor king that scorns the power and force of Portugal. Then let the earth discover to his ghost such tortures as usurpers feel below. Racked let him be in proud Ixion's wheel, pined let him be with Tantalus's endless thirst. Prey let him be to Titus' greedy bird, wearied with Sisyphus' immortal toil, and lastly for revenge, for deep revenge, whereof thou goddess and deviser art, damned let him be, damned, and condemned to bear all torments, tortures, plagues, and pains of hell.
Oh, that's a really interesting scene. I really liked that one. I mean, things are not going well, clearly, for, Sebastian to come straight on stage and say, why is everyone not doing what I've been telling them to do? Everyone stay together. Nobody run away. And then Muly Mahamet comes in and sort of goes, are you going to stick to the deal? You're going to make me, you're going to put me on the throne. That's going. Are we going to do that? We can do it. We can do it, guys. And yeah, there's a really important sense that almost nobody else really speaks. The people who, in theory, enacting a lot of this war are sort of just keeping very quiet. Stukely has 2 lines. Various others have a few lines, and I find that fascinating. There's we were talking about potential modern parallels earlier, and I was actually starting to think about the trying to put on a sort of puppet leader and depose another regime by outside powers. And I'm sort of thinking that King Sebastian is I don't know, CIA task force leader, and or something along those lines. There's something there that might be quite interesting to play with. I've just been rambling on. Thoughts from the room about this is the act, by the way. That's it for Act 4. 2 short scenes setting up the battle. Really, really, really nice stuff. Thoughts? Wave at me. Someone who wants to jump in. I can't have said it all.
We're just going to let Saigons be Saigons.
Oh,
It's still kind of waiting for the play to start, Rod. That's the thing. It's still before the play.
Yeah.
I don't. I think this is action. There is stuff going on. It's more momentum.
What Muly Mahamet is asking them to do is to get their troops into the field looking warlike. He's not asking them necessarily to fight, but he says if we can get our army into the field, then we will get some defections. We've had some, we'll get more, but we need you lot to look as if you're still here.
Yes, they'll only come to me if I look powerful.
Yeah.
And that's where the that sort of connection was coming to me there.
And Sebastian is, everybody says what a wonderful young man he is, and how honourable and how courageous and how incredibly stupid.
Oh yeah, I mean this is a massive military disaster that's pretty much all his fault. He's led them the worst possible route to achieve their aims, and they are poorly supplied, and they don't actually need to attack them. Probably just leave them there to die. They just die of thirst. So yeah, there's a good reason why everyone's a bit worried and why he has to chivvy everybody on, because everybody's really worried and leaving.
Interesting, all the classical references in Muly Mahamet's speech, because that's definitely turning the whole thing into an epic. It's kind of giving it epic proportions.
Yeah, I really do like that. Both his speeches there are really, really strong. Okay, if we're not getting any more, then I won't force the issue. Let's go into Act 5, and this is quite a busy introduction to Act 5. The presenter is accompanied by an awful lot of stuff, which I will endeavour to describe as we go. So, enter the presenter before the last jum show, and speaketh.
Ill be to him that so much ill bethinks, and ill betide this foul ambitious Moor, whose wily trains with the smoothest course of speech have tied and tangled in a dangerous war, the fierce and manly king of Portugal.
And I don't actually need to do thunder and lightning, because actually if you listen in the background, you can actually hear genuine lightning and thunder in the sky, from the sky gods. Anyway, thunder and lightning, that's what the stage direction says.
Now through the heavens forth the lightning flames, and thunder over Afric's fatal fields. Blood will have blood, foul murder scape no scourge.
Enter fame like an angel, and hangs the crowns upon a tree.
At last descendeth fame, and Iris did, to finish fainting Dido's dying life. Fame from her stately bower doth descend, and on the tree, as fruit new ripe to fall, placeth the crowns of these unhappy kings, that erst she kept in eye of all the world.
And here a blazing star shoots up.
Now fiery stars and streaming comets blaze, that threat the earth and princes of the same.
Fireworks go off!
Fire, fire about the axle tree of heaven, whirs round, and from the foot of Cassiope in fatal hour consumes these fatal crowns.
And by the description there, fire, fire about the axle tree of heaven, it could even be a Catherine wheel. It could be spircling round and round it goes. And then the stage director says, one falls.
Down falls the diadem of Portugal.
And then another falls.
The crowns of Barbary and kingdoms fall. Ay me, the kingdoms may not stable stand, and now approaching near the dismal day, the bloody day wherein the battles join, Monday the 4th of August, 78. The sun shines woolly on the parched earth, the brightest planet in the highest heaven. The heathens, eager bent against their foe, give onset with great ordinance to war. The Christians, with great noise of cannon shot, sound angry onsets to the enemy. Give ear, and hear how war begins his song, with dreadful clamours, noise, and trumpets sound.
So yes, if you're here for the special effects, you've finally got the stuff. Falling crowns coming from the sky, blazing stars, fireworks, all the things going on here. And of course, we've already had intimations that the armies have got a lot of artillery. So we can expect there's going to be more bangs probably to come. So you've got to stock up on your stage pyrotechnics for this one, people. You wanted war. You didn't want politics. You didn't want background. You didn't want history. You wanted war. Well, here you are, people. Now you're getting war. Any thoughts before we move on?
And a date. A whole line of iambic pentameter is given over to a date.
Yeah.
Monday, the 4th of August, 78, which is very Taybridge disaster, isn't it?
But the thing is, I said yesterday it's before Lepanto, but it isn't. It's after.
Yes, I checked
I was
that.
wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tamara.
We've had the image of crowns on trees before, and that struck me a little bit. Is that just a thing that they like to do at the time?
It's a good visual signifier. Can you remember where that was from? I can't.
No, it does ring a vague bell, though.
Okay, that's one to hunt out.
Was it Salamis even?
No, I think it was Tamburlaine.
Might have been. Dan?
In Salamis, we had that one of my characters who was presenting the golden tree had crowns on it, I believe.
Yeah, that's what it was. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Salamis is something that comes after this, maybe just borrowing the imagery, possibly.
Let's reuse the prop.
Different companies, so, well, we think it is.
Well, they might have nicked it.
Yeah.
If it was performed at the Rose, and there was...
Yeah, that's true. Maybe they nicked it out of the store.
Because that never happens.
Actors are such tea leaves.
This is the Lord Admiral's men, then.
Yeah, we think so. If it is referred to by the other names, then yes, that's the thinking. Because it's Henslow's diary has a what is it? What does he call it? Molly Moloko or something. Yeah. So if that is the same play, then it is this play, and therefore it fits. But it might not be. Might not.
Yes, but if you look at the plot, I would say it probably is.
Oh yeah, and there's chariots, and it's got to be the same company.
Yeah.
There is a play about a king of Portugal, I think, in Henslow as well, if I remember. There's Sebastian, king of Portugal. Can't remember now.
That rings a bell. I can have a little look while we do the next section.
Well, there's one of the actors is named in Henslow's diary, and I think that's the one to which you're referring, Steve. So
anyway,
there you go. Yeah.
We're lots of speculation there. Shall we go into the Battle of Alcazar?
It's a battle.
There's a battle. It's in the title and everything. Okay.
Sorry.
Act 5, Scene 1. Alarums within, let the chambers be discharged. And the Moors fly as the battle is entered. Skirmish still, then enter Abedelmelec in his chair, Zareo and their train.
Say on, Zareo, tell me all the news. Tell me what fury rangeth in our camp that hath enforced our Moors to turn their backs. Zareo, say what chance did bode this ill? What ill enforced this dastard cowardice?
My lord, such chance as wilful war affords, such chances and misfortunes as attend on him, the god of battle and of arms. My lord, when with our ordnance fierce we sent, our Moors with smaller shot as thick as hail, follows apace to charge the Portugal, the valiant duke, the devil of Avero, the bane of Barbary, fraughted, full of ire, breaks through the ranks, and with 500 horse, all men at arms, forward, and full of might, assaults the middle wing, and puts to flight 8,000 harquebus that served on foot, and 20,000 Moors with spear and shield, and therewithal the honour of the day.
Ah, Abedelmelec, dost thou live to hear this bitter process of this first attempt? Labour, my lords, to renew our force of fainting Moors, and fight it to the last. My horse, Zareo. Oh, the goal is lost. The goal is lost. Thou King of Portugal, thrice happy chance it is for thee and thine that heaven abates my strength and calls me hence. My sight doth fail. My soul, my feeble soul shall be released from prison on this earth. Farewell, vain world, for I have played my part.
And he dieth. There's a long skirmish, and then enter his brother, Muly Mahamet Seth.
Brave Abedelmelec, thou thrice noble lord, not such a wound was given to Barbary, had 20 hosts of men been put to sword, as death, pale death, with fatal shaft hath given. Lo, dead is he, my brother and my king, who might have revived with news I bring.
His honours and his types he hath resigned unto the world, and of a manly man, lo, in a twinkle a senseless stock we see.
You trusty soldiers of this warlike king, be counselled now by us in this advice. Let not his death be bruited in the camp, lest with the sudden sorrow of the news the army wholly be discomfited. My lord Zareo, thus I comfort you. Our Moors have bravely borne themselves in fight, likely to get the honour of the day. If aught may be gotten, beware such loss is. Therefore, in this apparel, as he died, my noble brother we will here advance, and set him in his chair with cunning props, that our barbarians may behold their king, and think he doth repose him in his tent.
Right politic and good is your advice.
Go then, and see it speedily performed. Brave lord, if Barbary recover this, thy soul with joy will sit and see the fight.
And the scene, all the scenes segue into each other as there are more alarums enter to the battle, and there are the Christians fly, enter the Duke of Avero. Enter the Duke of Avero. The Duke of Avero is slain, and then enter Sebastian and Stukely.
Seest thou not, Stukely? Oh, Stukely, seest thou not the great dishonour done to Christendom? Our cheerful onset crossed in springing hope. The brave and mighty prince, Duke of Avero, slain in my sight. Now joy betide his ghost, for like a lion did he bear himself. Our battles are now all disordered, and by our horses' strange retiring back, our middle ring of footmen overrode. Stukely, alas, I see my oversight. False-hearted Mahamet, now to my cost, I see thy treachery, warned to beware a face so full of fraud and villainy.
And the alarums sound within, and they run out to set upon Stukely, and he driveth them in, and then enter the Muly, Mahamet Moore and his boy flying.
Villain, a horse,
My lord, if you return, you die.
Villain, I say, give me a horse to fly, to swim the river, villain, and to fly.
And exit the boy.
Where shall I find some unfrequented place, some uncouth wall, where I may curse my fill, my stars, my dam, my planets, and my nurse, the fire, the air, the water, and the earth, all causes that have thus conspired in one, to nourish and preserve me to this shame. Thou that wert at my birth predominate, thou fatal star, what planet ere thou be, spit out thy poison bad, and all the ill that fortune, fate, or heaven may bode a man. Thou nurse infortunate, guilty of all, thou mother of my life that broughtest me forth, cursed mayst thou be for such a cursed son. Cursed may be thy son with every curse thou hast. Ye elements, of whom consists this clay, this mass of flesh, this cursed, crazed corpse, destroy, dissolve, disturb, and dissipate, what water, earth, and air congealed.
And there are more alarums, and the boy re-enters.
Oh, my lord, these ruthless Moors pursue you at the heels, and come amain to put you to the sword.
A horse, villain, a horse, that I may take the river straight and fly.
Here is a horse, my lord, as swiftly paced as Pegasus. Mount thee thereon, and save thyself by flight.
Mount me I will, but may I never pass the river till I be revenged upon thy soul, accursed Abedelmelec. If not on earth, yet when we meet in hell, before grim Minos, Radamant, and Acus, the combat will I crave upon thy ghost, and drag thee thorough the loathsome pools of Lethe, Styx, and fiery Phlegethon.
And they exit, and we will pause there in this melee of action with things all happening at once. There are a couple of questions which we can answer in production, but which we cannot have a definite answer to. Whether the boy here is Muly Mahamet's son or just a boy. I left it as boy in the text you've been reading because there isn't any particular affection between them. There is the question, is, as has been stated on Facebook, with Abedelmelec being Weekend at Bernie's styled on stage, is he still on stage? Do they take the corpse off, or is he a permanent presence throughout the continuing ongoing scenes as a sort of talisman of death that goes on? I have actually seen some of these scenes actually read during a conference, during the Changing Histories conference the other year, and it was really nice to actually see this action, following on from descriptors of the flowing fireworks, etc., and some of the ways that might have been done. It's busy, suddenly busy, action's happening. Thoughts? Who wants to leap in? Wave at me. Helen, go for it.
We got a horse.
We've got another horse. We collect horses.
Yeah.
I don't know if the horse definitely comes on though. You could just be over there. Literally, I've just tied him up just around the corner. Anyway, sorry, Ruth.
No, I'm very impressed by Muly Mahamet's speeches. I mean, some of these, that line, destroy, dissolve, disturb, and dissipate, is brilliant. I mean, there's some great lines there.
I was wondering if there was a stage direction missing.
I'm sure there are many stage directions missing.
From my final speech as Abedelmelec, because one minute I was rousing my troops forward to war, and the next minute I was dying, and I was like, oh, okay, that's a lot to happen in 6 lines. So I assume at some point he was shot with an arrow, like it was quite sudden, or
he's
something.
Brought in his chair, so he's definitely in a state of already being a bit
right. So he's
bit
already
stuffed.
wounded. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or he's dying of despair, disappointment, or he's had a stroke. I mean, there's no suggestion that he's had a wound.
No, that's the thing, and it just suddenly seems to overtake him, which I found quite interesting. Maybe he's having a heart attack or something.
We do have two textual lacunas that go on during Zarero's speech that are intimated, but there's nothing immediately obvious textually with the rest of it. Dan?
It's always I don't want to say fallacy, but one shouldn't look at a playbook or a printed text and expect to see all the stage directions there, because stage directions, of course, are composed sometimes by the printing house themselves. It's not necessarily from the manuscript that was used for performance, nor do we even know this was one. There's no indication that this was the playbook used for performance there. There aren't other items that would suggest that.
I mean, I think here we can use our imagination for what our staging version would be. You know, we've got there's a massive artillery barrage opens this. I think we should see him, you know, turn, spin during the dumb show, carried into his chair, bandaged, and then straight into the dialogue. That's how I'd do it. But you know,
one other item to add, just to go back to Steve's point, I was looking up. Richard Allen was the one who was referred to back in Allen's diary back in 1593 there. So there's the connection as well with what would have been performed at the Rose. And we definitely know this is the Admiral's Men, because this is the Admiral's Men's company, a number of the actors here. So.
And we do have a reference in documents to a King Sebastian of Portugal, so that was a thing. Otherwise, we know nothing about it. It is a name of a play.
Sadly, he's the only actor who we don't know. One of the principal actors whose name we don't actually know who played it. From the plot, that is.
So yeah, so there's it's interesting. We've got King Sebastian coming on with Stukely, and once again, Stukely says nothing.
Yeah, I've noticed.
Yeah, I mean, he's there.
I do love that. He's a notorious character, and they're just like, yeah, he's there.
Yeah, he's on stage.
Like Legolas in Lord of the Rings, he's there.
He will get something more in a second, just to reassure everyone. So any additional points before we go into? I think we'll go rattle through the final acts, as it were, of this act, the final scenes. I say they all run into each other, so just remember, Muly and Mahamet is now literally just exiting on his horse, clip-de-clop, off he goes. More alarums. Enter Stukely with... ? Two Italians, or Hercules and Jonas, to be decided in performance.
Stand, traitor, stand, ambitious Englishman, proud Stukely, stand, stir not ere thou die. Thy forwardness to follow wrongful arms and leave our famous exhibition, erst intended by His Holiness for Ireland, foully hath here betrayed and tied us all to ruthless fury of our heathen foe. For which as we are sure to die, thou shalt pay satisfaction with thy blood.
Avaunt, base villains! Twit ye me with shame or infamy of this injurious war, when he that is the judge of right and wrong determines battle as him pleaseth best. But sith my stars bode me this tragic end, that I must perish by these barbarous Moors, whose weapons have made passage for my soul, that breaks from out the prison of my breast. Ye proud malicious dogs of Italy, strike on! Strike down this body to the earth, whose mounting mind stoops to no feeble stroke.
And they stab him.
Why suffer we this Englishman to live? Villain, bleed on! Thy blood in channels run, and meet with those whom thou to death hast done.
And exit these two figures.
Thus Stukely, slain with many a deadly stab, dies in these desert fields of Africa. Hark, friends, and with the story of my life let me beguile the torment of my death. In England's London lordings was I born, on that brave bridge, the bar that thwarts the Thames. My golden days, my younger careless years were when I touched the height of fortune's wheel and lived in affluence of wealth and ease. Thus in my country, carried long aloft, a discontented humour drave me thence to cross the seas to Ireland, then to Spain. There had I welcome and right royal pay of Philip, whom some call the Catholic King. There did Tom Stukely glitter all in gold, mounted upon his jennet, white as snow, shining as Phoebus in King Philip's court. There, like a lord, famous Don Stukely lived, for so they called me in the court of Spain. Till, for a blow I gave a bishop's man, a strife gan rise between his lord and me, for which we both were banished by the king. From thence to Rome rides Stukely, all a flaunt. Received with royal welcomes of the Pope, there was I graced by Gregory the Great, that then created me Marquis of Ireland. Short be my tale, because my life is short. The coast of Italy and Rome I left, then was I made Lieutenant General of those small forces that for Ireland went, and with my companies embarked at Ostia. My sails I spread, and with these men of war in fatal hour at Lisbon we arrived. From thence to this hard exigent was Stukely driven to fight or else to die, dared to the field that never could endure to hear God Mars his drum, but he must march. Ah, sweet Sebastian, hadst thou been well advised, thou mightst have managed arms successfully. From our cradles we were marked all, and destined to die in Afric here. Stukely, the story of thy life is told. Here breathe thy last, and bid thy friends farewell. And if thy country's kindness be so much, then let thy country kindly ring thy knell. Now go, and in that bed of honour die, where brave Sebastian's breathless corse doth lie. Here endeth fortune's rule and bitter rage. Here ends Tom Stukely's earthly pilgrimage.
And with his final aria, he dieth, and re-enter Muly Mahamet Seth and his train with drums and trumpets.
Retreat is sounded through our camp, and now from battle's fury cease our conquering Moors. Pay thanks to heaven with sacrificing fire, Alcazar and ye towns of Barbary. Now hast thou sit as in a trance and seen, to thy soul's joy and honour of thy house, the trophies and the triumphs of thy men. Great Abedelmelec and the God of kings hath made thy war successful by the right, his friends whom death and fates have ta'en from thee. Lo, this was he that was the people's pride, and cheerful sunshine to his subjects all. Now have him hence, that royally he may be buried and embalmed as is meet. Zareo, have you through the camp proclaimed that erst we gave in charge?
We have, my lord, and rich rewards proposed for them that find the body of the king. For by those guards that had him in their charge, we understand that he was done to death, and for his search 2 prisoners, Portugals, are set at large to find their royal king.
But of the traitorous Moor you hear no news, that fled the field and sought to swim the ford.
Not yet, my lord, but doubtless God will tell, and with his finger point out where he haunts.
So let it rest, and on this earth bestow this princely course, till further for his funerals we provide.
From him to thee, as true succeeding prince, with all allegiance and with honest types, in name of all thy people and thy land, we give this kingly crown and diadem. Funeral rites, obsequies.
We thank you all, and as my lawful right, with God's defence and yours, I shall keep it.
And yes, I'm thinking that the funeral rites and obsequies is probably looks like a stage direction, or something's gone horribly, horribly wrong there. I'll look into that one. Anyway, at this point, enter 2 Portugals with the body of King Sebastian.
As gave your grace in charge, right royal prince, the fields and sandy plains we have surveyed, and even among the thickest of his lords, the noble king of Portugal we found, wrapped in his colours coldly on the earth, and done to death with many a mortal wound.
Lo, here, my lords, this is the earth and day of him that erst was mighty king of Portugal. There let him lie, and you for this be free to make return from hence to Christendom.
And enter 2 peasants or soldiers, depending on your point of view, bringing in the body of the Moor.
Long live the mighty king of Barbary!
Welcome, my friend. What body hast thou there?
The body of the ambitious enemy that squandered all this blood in Africa, whose malice sent so many souls to hell, the traitor Muly Mahamet do I bring, and for thy slave, I throw him at thy feet.
Zareo, give this man a rich reward, and thank be God of just revenge that he hath given our foe into our hands. Beastly, unarmed, slavish, full of shame. But say, how came this traitor to his end?
Seeking to save his life by shameful flight, he mounteth on a hot barbarian horse, and so, in purpose to have passed the stream, his headstrong steed throws him from out his seat, where, diving off for lack of skill to swim, it was my chance alone to see him drowned, whom by the heels I dragged from out the pool, and hither have him brought thus, filed with mud.
A death too good for such a damned wretch. But sith our rage and rigour of revenge by violence of his end preventeth is, that all the world may learn by him to avoid to hail on princes to injurious war, his skin we will be parted from his flesh, and being stiffened out and stuffed with straw, so to deter and fear the lookers on from any such foul fact or bad attempt, away with him.
Exeunt attendants with the body of Muly Mahamet.
And now, my lords, for this Christian king, my lord Zareo, let it be your charge to see the soldiers tread a solemn march, trailing their pikes and ensigns to the ground, so to perform the prince's funerals.
And that's possibly where random funeral rites and obsequies came in. And thus ends the tragical Battle of Alcazar. Is it interesting things that probably going on here? There is definitely the sensation that that body is still on stage because Muly Mahamet Seth, all of that speech now that has sat in a trance and seen it seems to be to the corpse on stage, and you know, and after that, I called it an aria. You know, the play cannot end till Stukely sings.
Yeah, that was so funny. Like, it was like, oh, I'm dying. I've got this dagger stuck in me, but I'm just going to recount my entire life for 2 pages.
And he makes the fatal error of short be my tale because my life is short. I mean, it's like going, it's not short. It's already 20 odd lines by now. It's definitely not short.
I'm feeling a bit better.
Yeah.
It's like an opera, isn't it? It's I remember having to watch. I was made to watch Tristan and Isolde, Wagner, yay, and it was the same thing. He kept on going on about how he was dying, and you were just like, can you
just get a bloody move on?
I was puzzled by that. I did a little bit of digging around. And it could be some kind of extra theatrical reference to, apparently there's loads of ballads about Stukely already by the time the play comes on. So it's kind of, you know, it's like this, it could literally be referring back to a song, or if not not literally to one song, you know, come on, with Stukely, he's turned up, he's not said anything. What about this fantastic Stukely career? And we kind of sneak all of that ballady stuff in. Because it does feel like that, doesn't it? And it reminded me a little bit as well of, there's a collection called Mirror for Magistrates, which doesn't have him in it, and it's mostly sort of kings who have died badly or highly placed people who've died badly, but it's just a long collection of laments from the afterlife. And so that there's a kind of, it's this sort of strange sort of intertextuality here. This is the kind of stuff that you can find elsewhere in Tudor writing from dead people.
Yes,
it kind of feels like that a little bit, doesn't it? It kind of feels like he's alive and dead at the same time.
Yes, we've got a lot of the material where certainly by recently dead or where that seems to be a literary device that turns up. I'm working on such a thing myself at the moment. It does feel almost like you've paid your money to see. Some of you paid your money to see some Stukely. We've got to put some in at the end at least. Dan, I see your hand.
I'm not sure if Steve, if you had just seen or had already seen Tiffany Stern's talk that she had given. She gave a 10-minute talk today about theater publicity and ballads, and she's talked specifically about the idea of how ballads were sold at the beginning, at the end of plays, at the playhouse doors, in fact, and how they're actually. I actually thought that you must have just seen it. It was an hour before this talk here.
So this is the kind of souvenir program as you go out,
Yeah, I mean, you can look it up at the British Academy on YouTube. It's on there. It's still on there right now. But the idea that there was certainly ballads referenced in plays, and it might have been as a marketing tool to cross-market the two at the same time there. So I think it's a point well taken. I would love for someone, if not me, to chase this up, some of those ballads and see if there's a connection.
Just for people who might not know, Tiffany Stern is, I think, one of the most interesting and accessible scholars of early modern theatre. And so she's quite committed as well to getting stuff online and engaging with the public. So if you are curious about the business of theatre, then it really is worth kind of checking her out. She's at Shakespeare Institute now, isn't she?
Yes.
She was a prof at Oxford for like donkey's years. But she's really, really interesting. Pretty much everything she's read, I think, is really fascinating. Written, rather.
She's really good on stage directions.
She's good on everything. Improvisation.
Yeah, true.
She's brilliant on improvisation.
Considered to be the top by many in the field.
So the thing is, there is an obvious focus on Stukely. There is a Stukely play written a little under 10 years later to Captain Thomas Stukely, which we may get around to looking at some point in the future. Not in the immediate future, I'm afraid, but it does exist and it is very interesting. We're relatively short on time, so I'm going to just say for those newbies, if you have any thoughts about where we are, or anyone who was here yesterday who has something new to say that was not said yesterday, now is sort of your last chance. I quite like the idea here that maybe Stukely was actually literally doing an aria actually there at the end, and into the ballad. That's what you came to see, isn't it?
My heart will go on.
Tamara.
I've been trying to work out. We've been talking about one film yesterday that we thought reminded us of the play and vice versa. I actually think now that we've finished it and I've kind of understood more of what was going on, because I never read ahead, it's more like Titanic, but less with the love story, obviously. But it's just, it's the build up till the iceberg and the ship sinks. I think yesterday I was so confused and so lost in everything that was going on, and then after we finished, I looked up Stukely and I started understanding that these characters would have meant something to people much more than us. So yeah, I started seeing that it was called the Battle of, but it was literally just the build up to the battle, much like Titanic is all about, and the ship sinks. So I just wanted to say that, because I've moved away from the Phantom Menace.
Yes, I was going to say there is an element of I was thinking more Charge of the Light Brigade. It's all about building towards that catastrophe for the Portuguese. Portugal never takes a long time to recover from this total disaster for them. It's almost the French and Agincourt. They really don't recover for a very, very long time from this total failure from their point of view. Other final thoughts, new thoughts anyone wants to jump in with?
Just about Stukely's speech, it's very moral, isn't it? Because it's all about Fortune's wheel, and it kind of ends the play, or his death, introduces that element of, look at me, how splendid I was, and yet even I end up dying.
Mm.
Which is very Mirror for Magistrates. That's the real theme of it. Is earthly things pass away, even the mightiest. That's kind of what reminded me of it, I think.
Just very glad, Tamara, that you distanced this play from Phantom Menace. I thought that was a very unfair comparison yesterday.
I think structurally it just doesn't work at all. I think we kind of got there because of how lost we were with all the characters and how lost we were in terms of what is actually going on, where are we, all of that. You're so lost in it, as if you were reading a science fiction script. And for people who would have been watching it, it's more like, this is called the Titanic, I know what's going to happen.
I felt more like, just quickly, because I know we got to move on, just the whole, it was more comparative to Rogue One, I thought, in the fact they kept jumping around near the beginning, and I was trying to keep track of everything, but you knew it was going somewhere.
I think that's the thing, is we need to, in terms of a production, you need to presage the doom. You need to presage that we know where it's going, and that we're not worried about spoiling it for the audience in terms of that Stukely's going to die. He's going to die. Sebastian's doomed. These figures are. I mean, it's a shame actually that we get 2 offstage deaths. Yeah. Two major figures who and I think Muly Mahamet deserves an onstage death, because he is actually one of the most dynamic characters of the text. He's very interesting. But again, I think the other final thing to say, I'm afraid to hog this before we move on, is that this is not a long play. This is a very, very short text. We've looked at this over 1.5 sessions. So there's a lot of room for maneuver in terms of what you do with this. It's not like you're having to cut it down to, or interfere with the text too much to make it fill happily an evening of theatre. You actually need to find other stuff to fill it out with, which could be to do with context and dumb show and spectacle, that would give more to this in a modern production. I think the play would react well to. Any final thoughts before we move on to ancient British history?
Just quick one. I'm not sure where this falls in Lucas Aaron's study of, his idea that plays were around 2,500 words, and that's been disputed. But this pretty much, I believe this probably falls right in there of what an average play, Elizabethan play, would have been in terms of length. This is one of those plays that's been called an abridged play, this text. So it does seem to make sense that some speeches seem to cut off where they shouldn't be. But I wasn't thrown off by them. I felt like, well, this is what you would be doing. You would be cutting a play the way that we are. And one last thing, that's the deaths off stage. Obviously, we could still stage them if we wanted to, or maybe they did.
Yeah. Yes. I think we should. I don't know that the cuts are necessarily that substantial, actually, as either. And lengths of play do vary a lot. They seem to vary a lot. So I don't think we should get too stuck up on how long a play should be. Okay, we're going to jump now, unless anyone is desperate to speak. Okay, slough off the world of this battle, this shake the dust from off the battlefield. Now let us take you back in time to the ancient Britons, to the lamentable tragedy of Locrine, the eldest son of King Brutus, discoursing the wars of the Britons and the Huns with their discomfiture, the Britons' victory with their accidents, and the death of Albonac. No less pleasant than profitable. So this is a play written a few years in the future from Alcazar. I've got a dating around 1594. I'm sure it varies. It's all over the place. But possibly after we have there's all sorts of reasons why we can dance around where the dating of it lives. But this is another history play. We're dipping back. Make sure you're getting your scripts together if you're ready to move forward. Another history play, but going even further back in history. We're going back further than Gorbodoc. We are going back further than King Lear and his daughters. We are going back further and further to say the first British king, who will make a fleeting appearance in a moment. And of course, this is all history. This all happened. This is all absolutely, literally true, he said.
Geppetto's still doing very well.
Yes. The character of Dorothy is in the cast of characters at the beginning of Locrine.
Then worry not. I'm sure she will turn up. I would have picked it out from the script later on, unless maybe I've got this wrong.
I think she's in later. I think
maybe she doesn't appear in this first section. I apologise if that. No, I see a Dorothy. She does appear. She will click her heels together 3 times. Okay. So without further ado, we're going to crack on into the text. There is a prologue, and it's an old favourite. Oh yes, everyone. It's Arte. I haven't seen Arte for a couple of weeks. But here it comes in large as life, twice as natural. Stage direction, we have Enter Arte with thunder and lightning. We did that earlier. All in black, with a burning torch in one hand and a bloody sword in the other hand. And presently let there come forth a lion, running after a bear, or any other beast. You know, whatever you've got in stock. Then come forth an archer who must kill the lion in a dumb show and then depart. So that's one hell of an opening. However, Arte remains.
In panem sectator and umbra, a mighty lion, ruler of the woods, of wondrous strength and great proportion, with hideous noise, scaring the trembling trees, with yelling clamours, shaking all the earth, traversed the groves and chased the wandering beasts. Long did he range amid the shady trees, and drave the silly beasts before his face, when suddenly, from out a thorny bush, a dreadful archer with his bowie bent, wounded the lion with a dismal shaft. So he him stroked that it drew forth the blood, and filled his furious heart with fretting ire. But all in vain he threatened, teeth and paws, and sparkless fire from forth his flaming eyes, for the sharp shaft gave him a mortal wound. So valiant brute, the terror of the world, whose only looks did scare his enemies, the archer death brought to his latest end. Oh, what may long abide above this ground, in state of bliss and healthful happiness?
So having set the tone and slightly moved the atmosphere of this room from one play to another, we go into the first scene of the play. Enter Brutus, carried in a chair. Locrine, Camber, Albonac, Corineius, Gwendoline, Assaracus, Debon, and Thrasimachus.
Most loyal lords and faithful followers, that have with me, unworthy general, passed the greedy gulf of ocean, leaving the confines of fair Italy. Behold, your Brutus draweth nigh his end, and I must leave you, though against my will. My sinews shrunk, my numbed senses fail, a chilling cold possesseth all my bones. Black, ugly death, visage pale and wan, presents himself before my dazzled eyes, and with his dart prepared is to strike these arms, my lords, these never daunted arms that oft have quelled the courage of my foes, and eke dismayed my neighbour's arrogancy, now yield to death, o'erlaid with crooked age, devoid of strength and of their proper force, even as the lusty cedar worn with years, that far abroad her dainty odour throws, mongst all the daughters of proud Lebanon. This heart, my lords, this near-appalled heart, that was a terror to the bordering lands, a doleful scourge unto my neighbour kings, now by the weapons of impartial death is clove asunder and bereft of life. As when the sacred oak with thunderbolts, sent from the fiery circuit of the heavens, sliding along the air's celestial vaults, is rent and cloven to the very roots. In vain, therefore, I strangle with this foe, then welcome death, since God will have it so.
Alas, my lord, we sorrow at your case, and grieve to see your person vexed thus. But whatsoe'er the fates determined have, it lieth not in us to disannul. And he that would annihilate his mind, soaring with Icarus too near the sun, may catch a fall with young Bellerophon. For when the fatal sisters have decreed to separate us from this earthly mould, no mortal force can countermand their minds. Then, worthy lords, since there's no way but one, cease your laments and leave your grievous moan.
Your Highness knows how many victories, how many trophies I erected have triumphantly in every place we came. The Grecian monarch, warlike Pandrasus, and all the crew of the Melasians, Gopharius the Armstrong, king of Gauls, and all the borders of great Aquitaine have felt the force of our victorious arms, and to their cost beheld our chivalry. Where'er Aurora, handmaid of the sun, where'er the sun bright guardians of the day, where'er the joyful day with cheerful light, where'er the light illuminates the world, the Trojans' glories fly with golden wings, wings that do soar beyond fell Henri's flight. The fame of Brutus and his followers pierceth the skies, and with the skies the throne of mighty Jove, commander of the world. Then, worthy Brutus, leave these sad laments. Comfort yourself with this your great renown. Fear not death, though he seem terrible.
Nay, Corineius, you mistake my mind in construing wrong the cause of my complaints. I fear to yield myself to fatal death. God knows it was the least of all my thoughts. A greater care torments my very bones, and makes me tremble at the thought of it. And in you, lordings, doth the substance lie.
Most noble lord, if aught your loyal peers accomplish may to ease your lingering grief, I, in the name of all, protest to you that we will boldly enterprise the same, were it to enter to black Tartarus, where triple Cerberus with his venomous throat scareth the ghosts with high resounding noise, will either rent the bowels of the earth, searching the entrails of the brutish earth, or with his Ixion's overdaring son be bound in chains of ever-during steel.
Then hearken to your sovereign's latest words, in which I will unto you all unfold our royal mind and resolute intent, when golden Hebe, daughter to great Jove, covered my manly cheeks with youthful down, the unhappy slaughter of my luckless sire, drove me and old Assaracus, mine in, as exiles from the bounds of Italy, so that perforce we were constrained to fly to gracious monarch, noble Pandrasus. There I alone did undertake your cause. There I restored your antique liberty. Through Graecia frowned, and all Molossia stormed, though brave Antigonus with martial band, in pitched field encountered me and mine, though Pandrasus and his contributories, with all the root of their confederates, sought to deface our glorious memory and wipe the name of Trojans from the earth. Him did I captivate with this mine arm, and my compulsion forced him to agree to certain articles which there we did propound. From Graecia through the boisterous Hellespont, we came unto the fields of Lestragon, whereas our brother Corineius was, since when we passed the Sicilian Gulf, and so transfretting the Illyrian Sea, arrived on the coast of Aquitaine, where with an army of his barbarous Gauls, Gutharius and his brother Gethilus, encountering with our host, sustained the foil. And for your sakes, my Turnus, there I lost, Turnus that slew 600 men at arms, all in an hour, with his sharp battle-axe. From thence upon the strand of Albion, to Chorus haven happily we came, and quell the giants come of Albion's race, with Gog-Magog, son to Samotheus, the cursed the captain of that damned crew. And in that isle at length I placed you. Now let me see if my laborious toils, if all my care, all my grievous wounds, if all my diligence were well employed.
When first I followed thee and thine, brave king, I hazarded my life and dearest blood to purchase favours at your princely hands, and for the same in dangerous attempts, in sundry conflicts and in diverse broils, I showed the courage of my manly mind. For this I combated with Gethilus, the brother to Gutharius of Gaul. For this I fought with furious Gog-Magog, a savage captain of a savage crew. And for these deeds, brave Cornwall I received a grateful gift given by a gracious king. And for this gift, this life and dearest blood will Corineius spend for Brutus's good.
And what, my friend, brave prince, hath vowed to you, the same will Debon do unto his end.
Then, loyal peers, since you are all agreed and resolute to follow Brutus' hosts, favour my sons, favour these orphans, lords, and shield them from the dangers of their foes. Locrine, the column of my family, and only pillar of my weakened age, Locrine, draw near unto thy sire, and take thy latest blessing at his hands. And for thou art the eldest of my sons, be thou a captain to thy brethren, and imitate thy aged father's steps, which will conduct thee to true honour's gate. For if thou follow sacred virtue's law, thou shalt be crowned with a laurel branch, and wear a wreath of sempiternal fame, sorted amongst the glorious happy ones.
If Locrine do not follow your advice and bear himself in all things like a prince that seeks to amplify the great renown left unto him for an inheritage by those that were his ancestors, let me be flung into the ocean and swallowed in the bowels of the earth, or let the ruddy lightning of great Jove descend upon this my devoted head.
But for I see you all to be in doubt. Who shall be matched with our royal son, Locrine? Receive this present at my hand, a gift more rich than are the wealthy mines found in the bowels of America. Thou shalt be spouse to fair Gwendoline. Love her and take her, for she is thine own, if so thy uncle and herself do please.
And herein how your highness honours me, it cannot now be in my speech expressed. For careful parents glory not so much at their honour and promotion, as for to see the issue of their blood seated in honour and prosperity.
And far be it from any maiden's thoughts to contradict her aged father's will. Therefore, since he to whom I must obey hath given me now unto your royal self, I will not stand aloof from off the lure, like crafty dams that most of all deny that which they most desire to possess.
Then now, my son, thy part is on the stage, for thou must bear the person of a king.
And Locrine, having kneeled, the king puts the crown on his head.
Locrine, stand up and wear the regal crown, and think upon the state of majesty, that thou with honour well mayest wear the crown. And if thou tenderest these my latest words, as thou requirest my soul to be at rest, as thou desirest thine own security, cherish and love thy new betrothed wife.
No longer let me well enjoy the crown than I do honour peerless Gwendoline.
Camber,
Have I not given out a camber? No adverse camber today. My lord?
The glory of mine age, and darling of thy mother Imogen, take thou the south for thy dominion. From thee there shall proceed a royal race that shall maintain the honour of this land, and sway the regal sceptre with their hands.
And Brutus now turns to Albonact.
And Albonact, thy father's only joy, youngest in years but not the youngest in mind, a perfect pattern of all chivalry, take thou the north for thy dominion, a country full of hills and ragged rocks, replenished with fierce untamed beasts, as correspondent to thy martial thoughts. Live long, my sons, with endless happiness, and bear firm concordance amongst yourselves. Obey the counsels of these fathers grave, that you may better bear out violence, but suddenly, through weakness of my age, and the defect of youthful puissance, my malady increaseth more and more. And cruel death hasteneth his quickened pace, to dispossess me of my earthly shape. Mine eyes wax dim, overcast with clouds of age. The pangs of death compass my crazed bones. Thus to you all my blessings I bequeath, and with my blessings, this my fleeting soul, my glass is run, and all my miseries to end with life. Death closeth up my eyes. My soul in haste flies to the Elysian fields.
And Brutus, first king of the Britons, dies.
Accursed stars, damned and accursed stars, to abbreviate my noble father's life. Hard-hearted gods and too envious fates, thus to cut off my father's fatal thread. Brutus that was the glory to us all, Brutus that was the terror to his foes. Alas, too soon, by Demogorgon's knife, the martial Brutus is bereft of life.
No sad complaints may move just Aeacus. No dreadful threats can fear Judge Rhodomoth. Wert thou as strong as mighty Hercules, that tamed the huge monsters of the world? Playest thou as sweet on the sweet-sounding lute as did the spouse of fair Eurydice, that did enchant the waters with his noise, and made stones, birds, and beasts to lead a dance, to constrain the hilly trees to follow him? Thou couldst not move the judge of Erebus, nor move compassion in grim Pluto's heart, for fatal laws expecteth all the world, and every man must tread the way of death. Brave Tantalus, the valiant Pelops' sire, guest to the gods, suffered untimely death, and old Titanus, husband to the morn, and eke grim Minos, to whom just Jupiter deigned to admit unto his sacrifice. The thundering trumpets of bloodthirsty Mars, the fearful rage of fell Tisiphon, the boisterous waves of humid ocean are instruments and tools of dismal death. Their noble cousin ceased to mourn his chance, whose age and years were signs that he should die. It reseth now that we inter his bones that were a terror to his enemies. Take up the course, and princes hold him dead, who while he lived upheld the Trojan state. Sound drums and trumpets, march to Troynovant, there to provide our chieftain's funeral.
And thus ends the first long scene of this act. And anyone who's seen Gorbodoc, anyone who's seen King Lear, anyone who's seen any number of plays by this point will be screaming, "Don't split the kingdom!" Don't do it. It's a terrible idea. We've been here before. Audiences will recognize this story. They will know where it is going. And because we've read quite a few of these plays now, we know where it's going as well. Or do we?
Well, at least this time he's had the grace to die at the point of doing the split, rather than trying to live on after it.
Mm. Oh yes, he's not going to be around for any longer. I mean, I think it's a really, sad scene to open the play with. I mean, it really is this. He gets to talk about his great victories. You know, don't know how much the actor's going to be coughing up blood. You know what the actor's going to be doing during this scene as well. What the court is doing around. There's so many possibilities about how you stage this. That yes, there are some quite long speeches in it, but you know, it's also it's a fresh audience at this point. You know, we've talked about this where sometimes you start the play with a ridiculously long speech or speeches. But actually, the funeral quality of this scene really hangs on to that. I really like that. Any thoughts about this opening? Anyone want to jump in?
Without a soliloquy from Locrine, I haven't a clue where he's at, whether he's the bad guy or the good guy. And also, the younger one was Daddy's favorite. That came out. And my character noticed it.
I mean, we should also mention the dumb show. I think the lion running after a bear or any other beast. You know, it's this, and you know, it's not a literal depiction. Again, it's sort of harking back to that sort of symbolic nature of dumb shows that you can have as well. You know, it's not like there's a hunting accident per se. This is something to do with killing the noble lion of the country kind of thing, and it's genuinely quite interesting. But you know, starting play with Arte always sets the tone.
Yeah, that's a great. I thought that prologue was great. Actually, it really like whipped up the atmosphere like instantly, and just drew everybody in.
Yeah.
End of an era. That's what it is.
I think you're in no doubt that you're in a massive patriarchy here, you know, where it's just men handing things down to men, and then Gwendoline is something to be kind of given away, and she doesn't have much say in things.
Yeah, I don't even think it's... Oh, go on.
No, go on.
Has he even, like, mentioned his wife? Because he's mentioned all the other family, like the rest of the family. But presumably he's had kids with somebody.
Yes. There was a wife. She has a name. I can rustle that up for you. I wasn't going to go into the sort of source material today, but you know, we will find her name. You know.
I mean, was she dead at that point?
I think we can assume so.
Yeah.
You know, at least in King Lear, you know, at the beginning, he says, I'm really feeling that, you know, without my wife at the moment, I'm not sure what to do with all my daughters. I'm a bit lost. And there was something quite humanizing about that with him. Whereas this is very monumental stuff, isn't it? They're very monumental figures. Valentina.
I just like, I'm really enjoying all the Romance and like Mediterranean references. For once, it's a bit different.
I mean, comparing it to the Battle of, which we just read, even though I'm not that familiar with this history of Britain, I feel a lot more like I understand where we're at and I understand what's going on.
I mean,
like, the setup is clearer.
I mean, to some degree, the thing about any of these early British history plays is they are tending to be the same plot, just with different names. You know, it's ex-king splits the kingdom. Chaos ensues.
Which was a thing that happened, though. I mean, France and Germany used to be one thing. That's sort of worked out-ish.
Yes.
Ish.
Yeah. Okay, we've got 2 more scenes for this session. They're quite short, quite different in tone, I suspect. Let's see where it goes. Stumbo, you might want to just take a deep breath in now, because you've got quite a bit of stuff to go. A few stage directions are thrown in the middle of that to give you an in-breath. But anyway, depending on whether you count the prologue as first scene or not, this is Act 1, Scene 2, or 3 if you want to include the prologue as a scene. Enter Stumbo above in a gown, with ink and paper in his hand, saying,
Either the 4 elements, the 7 planets, and all the particular stars of the pole Antastic are adversative against me, or else I was begotten and born in the wane of the moon, when everything, as Lactantius in his 4th book of consultation doth say, goeth as ward. Aye, masters, aye, you may laugh, but I must weep. You may joy, but I must sorrow, shedding salt tears from the watery fountains of my most dainty fair eyes, along my comely and smooth cheeks, in a great plenty, as the water runneth from the bucking tubs, or red wine out of the hogs' heads. For trust me, gentlemen, and my very good friends, and so forth, the little god, nay, the desperate god, Culprit, with one of his vengeable bird balls hath shot me unto the heel. So not only, but also, oh, fine phrase, I burn. I burn and I burn, in love, and in love. Ah, Stumbo, what hast thou seen? Not Dinah's with the ass Tom? Yea, with these eyes thou hast seen her, and therefore pull them out, for they will work thy bale. Ah, Stumbo, hast thou heard? Not the voice of the nightingale, but a voice sweeter than hers. Yea, with these ears hast thou heard it, and therefore cut them off, for they have caused thy sorrow. Nay, Stumbo, kill thyself, drown thyself, hung thyself, starve thyself. Oh, but then I shall leave my sweetheart, oh my heart. Now paid for thy master, I will dite an eloquent love pistol to her, and then she, hearing the grand verbosity of my scripture, will love me presently.
So let him write a little and then read.
My pen is naught, gentlemen. Lend me a knife. I think the more haste, the worse speed.
He then writes again, and after reads.
So it is. Mistress Dorothy, and the sole essence of my soul, that the little sparkles of affection kindled in me towards your sweet self has now increased to a great flame, and will, ere it be long consume my poor heart, except you with the pleasant water of your secret fountain quench the furious heat of the same. Alas, I am a gentleman of good fame and name, majestical in apparel comely, in gait portly, let not therefore your gentle heart be so hard as to despise a proper, tall, young man of a handsome life, and by despising him not only but also to kill him. Thus, expecting time and tide, I bid you farewell. Your servant, Signor Stumbo. Oh, wit! Oh, pate! Oh, memory! Oh, hand! Oh, ink! Oh, paper! Well, now I will send it away. Trompart! Trompart! What a villain is this? Why, sirrah? Come when your master calls you. Trompart!
And Trompart enters.
None, sir.
Thou knowest, my pretty boy, what a good master I have been to thee ever since I took thee into my service.
Aye, sir.
And how I have cherished thee always, as if you had been the fruit of my loins, flesh of my flesh, and bone of my bone.
Aye, sir.
Then show thyself herein a trusty servant, and carry this letter to Mistress Dorothy, and tell her,
Speaks in his ear, and exit Trompart.
Nay, masters, you shall see a marriage by and by, but here comes she. Now must I frame my amorous passions.
Enter Dorothy and Trompart.
Signor Stumbo, well met. I received your letters by your man here, who told me a pitiful story of your anguish, and so understanding your passions were so great, I came hither speedily.
Oh, my sweet and Pixney, the fecundity of my ingeny is not so great that I may declare unto you the sorrowful sobs and broken sleeps that I suffered for your sake, and therefore I desire you to receive me into your familiarity. For your love doth lie as near and as nigh unto my heart within, as mine eye to my nose, my leg unto my hose, and my flesh unto my skin.
Truly, Master Stumbo, you speak too learnedly for me to understand the drift of your mind, and therefore tell your tale in plain terms, and leave off your dark riddles.
Alas, Mistress Dorothy, this is my luck, that when I most would, I cannot be understood, so that my great learning is an inconvenience unto me. But to speak in plain terms, I love you, Mistress Dorothy, if you like to accept me into your familiarity.
If this be all, I am content.
Say'st thou so, sweet wench? Let me lick thy toes. Farewell, mistress.
And turning to the people.
If any of you be in love, provide ye a cupcase full of new coined words, then shall you soon have the Sacado, the Labras, and something else.
And thus ends the scene. I'm going to apologise to Strumbo because there is what we might call a typo, or just someone trying to make something slightly less rude. There is a bit which isn't quite as clear as it should be. Having gone on longly in your opening address about all the things that are against you, the line should go, etc., etc., etc. As the fourth book of Constellations doth say, goeth arseward.
Ah, okay.
So it's this wonderful, long, flowing speech of da 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 da. As George Bernard Shaw once said, "Bugger." It's that kind of literary game. What a fabulous character!
Great.
Um,
Fabulous.
Well, we certainly found the clown, haven't we?
Yeah, we certainly found one of them. Yes. Not only, but also. So we've got two clowns to choose from. Never mind. Yeah, there's lots of bits in that which are suggestions. Except you with the pleasant water of your secret fountain. That's quite suggestive as well. Would you like to comment on the Sacado de Labras, Valentina? Is it sort of Italian?
I think it's meant to be Spanish, but
Spanish.
I'm not sure it even is Spanish.
I'm
guessing it's juice of lips.
Sweetness of lips. It's supposed to be a corruption of the Italian, but if the Italian disagrees, then I'm going to say then not.
No.
I wonder if something else might be. It might be a possibility to vamp.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Just keep going.
Always nice to see Pigsney again. It's always a lovely turn of affection. We've had that in other plays. Any additional thoughts about this? There's so much play there. There's so much you could do with that.
I love the fact that Cupid's arrows are described as vengeable bird bolts. It's just so funny.
He burns in love, burns he does.
But successfully.
Well, that's the gag, isn't it?
Yeah,
He does this. He does all this stuff, and he just, I love you, and okay.
This be all. I am content.
Yeah, fine.
I'm just wondering how all of this is going to. This seems so different in tone. I mean, I know it's meant to be different in tone from the opening scene, but how the themes here, are going to articulate with what's happened in the first bit, or maybe they don't. Maybe that's the point. But I'm interested to see how that's going to work out.
Have we got what in modern terms would be a front of tabs number while they're doing a scene change?
I don't think it's necessary. There does seem to be a deliberate tonal shift, playing around with tones. in a much more concerted fashion than we've had in, not like in Celybin, where we just randomly had one comedy scene. Tamara.
Well, I was going to say, at least he's trying to woo his mistress.
Yeah.
Whereas, the other lady just got handed over.
Yeah.
And the thing is, he knows he's a bit of a verbal diuretic. He knows it. He understands that. He's trying not to be, and he keeps failing. And there's something really endearing about that.
Yeah.
I mean, Dorothy, Dorothy, were you convinced? Did he woo you?
Oh, wow. I like Stumbo, obviously. I quite like him as a clown. There's so many clowns to come as well.
So much business to
Heard
come.
of them.
Helen, you were jumping in.
No spoilers.
Yeah, I was just thinking that an awful lot depends on how old Stumbo is and what the difference in class is between him and Dorothy. Because it may be that from Dorothy's point of view, he's useful. That he'll raise her. He's got more money, he's got more class, and she can put up with the language.
Always with the rationality, Helen. Maybe she just loves him.
Maybe she does.
Okay, I'm going to force the pace because we just have one very, very, very short scene to read before we go into extra time for general discussions. So, final scene of the act. One more scene to go. Very, very brief. So, enter Locrine, Gwendoline, Camber, Albenac, Corineius, Assaracus, Debon, Thrasimachus, though only 3 of those will actually say anything.
Uncle and princes of brave Brittany, since that our noble father is entombed, and best beseems so brave a prince as he, if so you please this day, my love and I, within the temple of Concordia, will solemnize our royal marriage.
Right noble lord, your subjects every one must needs obey your highness at command, especially in such a cause as this, that much concerns your highness' great content.
Then frolic lordlings to fair Concord's walls, where we will pass the day in knightly sports, the night in dancing and in figured masks, and offer to god Rhesus all our sports.
I was wrong. There's only 2 people speak. Just one of them spoke twice. Yeah, it's interesting that love theme, or at least marriage theme. Really is actually, highlighted there because they've come out of the funeral. Let's get married. It's again that tonal shift total, and in a second, Arte is going to come back on again as we go into Act 2. So we're pitching tones. I'm seeing hands. Tamara first.
I'm just wondering if it's good or bad luck, or if it was considered good or bad luck to go and get married that quickly after a funeral. As in, is this
a portent?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know. Is there? I mean, is there?
I think we
Shush
getting
there.
married too soon after a death is not a good idea.
Dan?
Well, we already know this is a tragedy, so imagine it's not going to go well. This is where compared to Celybin, this is exactly what I think a tragedy needs, is the high-low, the tonal shift that which you're referring here. I imagine that we're going to see more and more that the insertion of the clowns so early on is not just for not solely for comic relief, but probably to parody the action that's going on, as is often the case with the clowns, with those types of subplots there. So no, I feel like this is an absolutely necessary thing to a good play, to have that shift there.
Yeah, I see Helen and then Stephen.
I was just going to say that the marriage of the new king is an absolute dynastic necessity, because without an heir, he's vulnerable.
Stephen?
Well, the point's been made before, but just following on from Dan, these are the clown scenes are what gets taken out of Tamburlaine, possibly by the printer. So the Tamburlaine we've got is one thing. Tamburlaine on stage might have looked a bit more like this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good point to throw that this is important and sort of never-ending structural thing that we do, English drama sort of does. There's a constant fluctuation between, if we go back to morality plays, you go from serious bit straight into our space comedy, and we've already had one bum joke already, so I at least one. Maybe more. So it's a fidelity to a very old tradition that keeps going. General. I mean, what's quite nice about this as an opening act is it actually is presented to us with quite a coherent set of bits of information. We've got old king's dead, new king's coming in, he's getting married. That's reinforced briefly by the end of the act. There's a comic subplot. We don't know how that, but there is a sense of feeling very grounded narrative. So as we're now into extra time, final thoughts about the opening of Locrine, but you can also go back to Alcazar if you want to, if you've suddenly thought of something you want to burningly throw in there. Alan?
I think for me, this actually works considerably better than the previous play, in large part because you are getting the light and shade, which I don't think we got in Battle.
Yes, there wasn't a particularly strident comedy sense in Alcazar at all, actually, was there? No.
But not only a lack of comedy, but also it all felt a bit samey to me.
Okay. Yes. Let's beware, of course. Obviously, comparing very, very different cultural products. Stephen.
Well, exactly that point, really. Just to think, the models for tragedy and for high political action, some of them go back a very long way with Seneca, but they don't really help you with subject matter like Alcazar. So, Rob's point about this kind of light and shade thing, that's entrenched as a dramatic tradition. And Alcazar is very much on its own, in a sense. It's having to try and work out how to do this material because it doesn't have that cultural model within ideas of tragedy in the same way. And it can't do what Alan's just said about Locrine either. So sort of trying to be fair to Alcazar, really, it's kind of generically stranded a little bit.
Yes, the Locrine has an awful lot of a greater sort of history. People have done things like this before, therefore they know how to do this. I think Stephen's point's good there. Other thoughts? Sarah, have you got any final thoughts at this time?
Oh, I'm really enjoying it. It seems a while since we had a really good, well-written clown. I'm drawing a veil over Salamis.
I don't think the clown was badly written. It just wasn't there.
It just didn't have the impact that they usually have. But this is it's kind of it does feel very familiar. Both the clowning and the sort of dynastic stuff. It all feels quite familiar, but that's not a bad thing. It's sprightly. I like the contrast in tone. I do think it's interesting the way it's structured, that this should come after Brutus's death, which in turn comes after that prologue of Arte's, because Arte was setting something up that really seemed very, very different to what we actually got in the rest of the act. So that's created some really interesting things to chew on. And yeah, I think Stumbo is just fantastic, and I hope there's loads more of him.
Yes, we once we get Hodge out of the way, we're feeling possibly a Stumbo workshop might be on the offer.
Yeah.
Well, Stumbo, Valentina, any final thoughts?
I mean, I agree with everybody else. It so far so good. I like it. I like a tragedy that's got quite a lot of comedy, at least at the beginning. I'm curious to see how it all goes wrong, because presumably it will. But yeah.
Tamara, any final thoughts?
I'm probably going to repeat what everybody said, but possibly because it feels much more familiar. You feel, or I feel more at home in this one. And I'm glad, because I got a bit worried yesterday when I was just completely at sea. I enjoy all the classical references in this, and I've just taken a peek at what the Act 2 prologue thingy says. So I look forward to much more of that. And yeah.
Yes, it's always nice to have another call out to Radamanth. That judge gets some great work on the Celestial Circuit. Yeah. Ruth, any final thoughts, having sort of come in halfway through one play and opening of another?
No, just to repeat that this does feel very familiar and I'm enjoying it a lot.
Elizabeth, similarly, splinched between two plays. Any final thoughts?
Brutus, it's gone too soon. He just started going and then he was gone.
Some lovely speeches, actually. I think there's something to dig in that as well. Especially if looking back at some of the stories about Brutus as well, and just be able to regurgitate some of those is quite fun.
Yes.
Who haven't I? Helen, I don't think. I keep missing you out, Helen. I'm sorry.
Well, I think it's probably my fault. Yeah, I hate to say it in this distinguished company, but I was quite taken with Alcazar. Locrine I have yet to make friends with.
That's it's good summing up. I like that. I don't know, Dan, if we actually came to you for a final thought or just midway through another thought. So anything final from you?
Everyone knows how I felt about Alcazar, so I need not repeat that. But I think the point was brought up that it does stand on its own. It's not really a tragedy. I mean, it's not only is it not advertised as a tragedy, but it doesn't have the same structure as the familiar tragedies that we know. And it certainly doesn't go down some really dark path like halfway through and you're just waiting for comic relief there. So I didn't think that it necessarily needed it in the way that's something that Salamis might have needed there, where the clown absolutely felt shoehorned in and probably to effectuate a scene change. In this play I'm liking very much, and for the same reasons. I think we know the structure, it's well written. It's probably worth mentioning already now, I mean, that the first quarto is of a play that we know has been revised sometime before 1595 by W.S., who knows who that might be. That's a whole nother issue there. But it could have been fitted more for this time period. It might have been following a model that had been developing over the years and maybe did resemble something like Tamerlane beforehand. Who knows? It's an unanswerable question there.
Well, yeah, and following models going, back 20, 30 years. I mean, as though the roots of Gorboduc continue to ring strong in this one. And I found that opening dumb show fascinating because it's not literal. It's not a literal depiction of the death of the dying king. It's this sort of weird allegorical performance of it, complete with lion and whatever other animal you can get available. I mean, that's just, I love that. That's a stage direction. Can we
It
get a
would be
bear?
great to stage that. I mean, you can just sort of see it, can't you, in your head, like how amazing that would be, that dumb show. Is there going to be a dumb show before every...
It seems to be a continuing trend. As far as the next act is concerned,
Yeah.
I can't comment further.
Okay.
I couldn't comment further. But yes, so we have another 2 sessions on this. This is a much longer play, a much more detailed example of action to come. So we've got 2 more sessions on that this week. So do continue the story of Locrine as we go into it next time. All that remains is to thank all the readers today and say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.